Welcome to Hip Hop Movie Club, the show that harmonizes the rhythm of hip hop with the magic of movies. Today we're discussing the 2002 graffiti drama Bomb the System. We're three old heads who put their old heads together to vibe on these films for you. I'm Dino Wright, podcaster, filmmaker, longtime hip hop fan, and by the time this episode comes out, I'll have been to the first show of the Wu-Tang Clan Final Chamber Tour with Run the Jewels opening. By the way, LP from Run the Jewels did the music for this film.
I'm JB, 80s and 90s nostalgia junkie, longtime hip-hop fan, and I share my first name with my favorite MC's born name, Q-Tip, a.k.a. Jonathan Davis.
Nice. I'm Boogie, a DJ, longtime hip-hop fan. Little known fact for the listeners, I actually used to be a graffiti artist back in the day. I never got a chance to do any walls, but I did a ton of burners on paper. I also did some jeans, jackets, shirts, etc. But yeah, this film kind of lines up what I used to do in the back in the day.
In this episode, we'll answer the question, is Bomb the System a much watch for hip-hop culture enthusiasts? And please hit that subscribe button down below so you won't miss an episode.
Bomb the System follows the exploits of Anthony, a.k.a. Blest, and his crew members, Justin and Kevin, who live the gritty life of graffiti bombers in New York City. Let's dig right in. So, Bomb the System, I think a good adjective is gritty. Is a gritty film, the way it was produced. You can tell it's got that indie vibe. A lot of like cut scenes and, like almost like strobe light techniques and not your traditional studio airbrushed, no pun intended, airbrush quality. But it's really gritty and it takes you there. And there's some character arcs and stories. It's a bit of a wild ride. Anthony he starts off right away and shows a flashback where he's a young boy, like age 7, talks about his older brother, who was a great graffiti bomber, a legend in the town. And, he had died the one night. And that's something that stays with him, that he has to overcome that struggle. So, yeah, there's a lot to this film, even though it never was, a big blockbuster type hit. But there's a lot we can dig into. Boogie, what was your initial impressions here that you took out of this film?
Yeah, so I definitely like the gritty factor of it. I mean, the opening scene shows, well, not the opening scene, but the scene that comes on right after the title screen shows up. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It had PSK playing. What does it mean? Classic hip-hop. A lot of people attribute that as the first origins of quote-unquote gangster rap. I mean, it was such a hit that Biggie actually, Notorious B.I.G. used it as a inspiration for one of his intros for More Money, More Problems. But yeah, it's a hit. So when I heard it, I was like, okay, they're taking it back. Mm-hmm. So I originally thought the movie was going to take place back in the day, but I realized after going through that it was a flashback scene. But if you look in the background, you see B-boys breakdancing, mm-hmm. and you also see artists doing burners in the background as well. So you got the elements all lining up right there. But like as you said, JB, it's the night that the main character, Blest, his brother Lazaro died, and that was just a flashback of Lazaro passing on the markers to him, so that just kind of setting everything up. But I do like that the way that it was depicted. It shows the actual crew and what they had to deal with as far as creating their burners and their tags, etc., and trying to elude the police officers with their task force, which was actually put in place to actually catch actual artists, to slow down the tagging on subways and walls, etc. And I like how they depicted those guys. I mean, unfortunately, we have some bad apples with the police force, which unfortunately is a stark reality to growing up in the hood. You come across a lot of guys like that. But I do like the character arc. It showed that even though our main character, Bless, was an accomplished graffiti artist in his own right, his name was recognized throughout the boroughs, he had aspirations. He actually did want to have his art in a gallery, which was something that we actually saw flashback to Wild Style. There was scenes of, aspirations of having your art actually published and produced into an art gallery setting. Yeah, he was on the fence about going back to school. And, I do appreciate that. There was also some scenes that showed some rival artists, and that's also was a reality that we also come across in Beat Street with Spit writing across Ramones and other artists' work. So that was a well-known thing, that if you got to be really good, while there were some that appreciated your work, there were also others that would hate on it and write across it. So that authenticity was there that I really appreciated. And like the guys hanging out and just, kind of trying to figure out life. I like coming of age stories. So I like to see stories where people are trying to figure things out. I wouldn't say that there was a happy ending in the film. I'm not going to, no spoilers, but I enjoyed it. I think it kept my attention and just showing how, these guys were trying to navigate and deal with not only getting their name out and being well-known graffiti artists, but also trying to cope with like life's ills and how to navigate the system.
Yeah, nice breakdown, Boogie, as usual. Got it right. What are your impressions as well?
For me, this movie was kind of like graffiti writ large. It can be both vandalism and legitimate artistic expression. I was watching this like, this is kind of a good movie, but kind of not of a good movie. So
yeah.
I did actually sort of enjoy it, but I do get the point of those who say that this was sort of a little trite and kind of like preachy. But there was some good parts, and overall, I thought this was an earnest attempt, and I dig it.
Yeah, and like you said, Boogie, a smaller budget, like indie film. The way it was filmed and it was teaching lessons, kind of like you said. Also, this is what graffiti art. When people tag over it, that's a brawl right there. We steal our cans. This is part of the gig. It kind of like lifts the covers, but like really intentionally, it's like we run from the cops because we got the biggest cojones. It's like this is what we do. So that kind of stays with you at the end. Is like, oh, the life of a true graffiti artist is that. And there's the internal struggles too. The part that's kind of trite is like you have the traditional mother, like, hey, what are you doing with your life? Are you going to go to college? Like she had very little dialogue, and that was it. Hey, we're waiting for letters from the college. What are you going to do? When are you going to get a real job? Don't end up like your brother, like the cautionary tale. And that's kind of like a trite type thing where it's been done so many times. There's not that much connection. He's barely home. And then there's a little bit of love interest with the girl Alex, and she had her own agenda. So that was another element in that. And she wanted to go nationwide and talk about, protesting against the corporate messaging and in her own form of bombing the system with like stencils and like things. And he's like, that's not real art. But she wanted to protest that way. So it's kind of
interesting. It was a very convenient plot device.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. She shows
all these
up.
People, except for Anthony, except for Blest, everyone was like this like very nicely crafted plot device.
Yeah. We got the familiar
a corrupt New York cop. Boy.
Exactly, yeah.
A lot of shades of gray and nuance there.
I mean, that cop totally unhinged. He's drinking heavily while driving. He's got the drug addiction. Like he's abusing someone, another graffiti bomber, and then he's like sniffing cocaine. I'm like, this guy is totally unhinged, like insane. And you could kind of see that, there could be some tragic repercussions. It was sad.
Yeah. He was like the stencil for Denzel's character in Training Day.
Yeah, really.
He walks so Denzel could run. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
He's like, hey, watch this Bobby Cox character. Hold my beer.
Yeah.
It's funny. I like the name Bobby Cox because if I know Donna remembers, Bobby Cox was the manager for the Atlanta Braves for many years, and he's the antagonist. And he actually had, if you look up Bobby Cox, there was some bit of a checkered past in his life with some abusive type stories. And it's gonna, is there any connection?
The manager or this
the
guy?
manager?
Wait, what?
The manager, like
really? I didn't know that.
There was some domestic abuse stuff that came up.
What?
In his past.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So there you go. But it's a funny name, Bobby Cox. But he was so corrupt, so aggressive. He was abusing drugs. He was talking about how he just takes advantage of prostitutes. He represents the whole systematic corruption, and he becomes increasingly unstable, more and more unstable throughout the film. And you're like, this guy's bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah. The drama starts right away because Bobby Cox crosses paths with Bless, Justin, Buck 50, and Kevin, his younger brother Loon, and of course, as they say, we don't stop for the cops, we run. And most people that understand how that works is you run from the police, you're really going to tick them off for making them run after you.
Yeah, they don't like that.
No, they don't like it at all. I mean, unfortunately, they come across Kevin, Justin's younger brother, by himself, and they rough him up a little bit. Well, they rough him up more than a little bit.
Yeah,
and that starts the spiral effect for Justin's character because that's his younger brother, so he really starts to become unhinged as far as his discretion with placing his tag. He wants to tag everything at this point. He's like, you know what? F this, F that. Let's tag this. We're going to go on a bombing spree. We're going to tag everything from the highway to I forgot how it worded, but it was like everything from this line to that line and everything in between. We're going to tag the police station. We're going to tag this and that. And the one part, it was actually a funny scene. It wasn't meant to be funny, but I cracked up when Cox and I can't think of his partner's name. They were at the bodega and they were buying some food and they left the car outside parked. And Justin and Kevin came along and then decided to go on a bombing spree with the car. Oh man, it was crazy. That was bold. It was bold. But when Cox had such a what's the word I'm looking for? He rubbed everyone so badly that when he came outside and was trying to figure out, well, who did this? Who did that? Who did this? Who's responsible? Did anybody see anything? The neighborhood basically just laughed at him.
Yeah.
Because they knew that who he was. Everybody knew who he was, and he had a reputation. So they were just like, yeah, we're like, we know who did it, but we're not telling you. Yeah. And just basically laughed at him. I was cracking up. I was like, oh man, that's so bad. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like karma for him a little bit, but.
Yep.
But unfortunately, we know how karma is. It's a continuous cycle. So yeah, he got something back, but because he got something back, he wanted to end up projecting onto someone else again. So he was like on a rampage as well, trying to find the people that were responsible for tagging his car up.
Yeah, another thing that happens is conflict ensues because, Anthony Blest, he's falling for Alex, his love interest. And then you have Justin questioning his allegiance to the crew. We want to tag. Yes. We're going to bomb the system. Like I said, they roughed up my brother. We want to go out here and do that. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm trying to just, do it when I want to do it. And he's like, come on, man, you guys, we got to do this. And you represent your brother. And then, when tragedy ensues and then you get Kevin was like, you supported for your brother. Like, wouldn't you do the same to fight for my brother? And that part was, I think, interesting. That was the part that I like kind of most is you get the ties to the older siblings on both sides. How would you react? That kind of hit a chord with me. I'm like, okay, I can see how those parallels make a lot of sense for the storyline. Yeah, but it is a cyclical. Yeah, tragedy of cycle. It's cyclical and coming of age, like you said. That's some of the themes here. Go ahead, Boogie.
Yeah, another interesting conversation that I saw was. And I don't know why I can't think of his name. When and it's fast going back to the beginning a little bit when Bobby Cox and the partner
Shorts.
Yes, yeah. Shorts. Yes, they were doing their. I guess they were staking out the neighborhood trying to find some people tagging because everybody knows they're not doing it in broad daylight. They're waiting until later on. So they were sitting in the car and they were talking. He was telling Bobby, he's like, I used to be one of those guys. But I mostly worked on trains. And then he said, growing up in my neighborhood is either you take the paint or you take the pipe. It's like gangsters. And he said, he chose to stick with the paint. And he said he goes back and he looks back at all of the people that were in his neighborhood growing up. He had the gangsters in the neighborhood that were trying to sell drugs and trying to get him to hustle drugs with them. But he chose to go on the other path and working on trains. He said, a lot of the gangsters in his neighborhood didn't really amount to much, but all of the graffiti artists from his neighborhood, they all have decent jobs now. He said, there's the one guy that was hustling down my block. Yeah, he's in a wheelchair right now because he took a couple bullets and he's paralyzed in a wheelchair now. He said, yeah, he was a tough gangster back then, but look at him now. He said, but all of the guys that decided to, run with me and we're doing, graffiti, he said, we all got decent jobs now. It's like, now I thought that was interesting because it's kind of like a kind of parallel that to the guys that play basketball or football or, the guys that, the quote unquote, nerds or whatever, the guys who succeed academically and they choose their paths and then they come back and you look at, where those guys who were chasing the fast money are now. Meanwhile, the guys who try to aspire for other things other than the quote unquote hustle life, how they ended up in life. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, they made it out.
Yeah, they made it out. Exactly.
I did enjoy the dialogue between Cox and Shorts. That was one of my favorite parts. The dialogue between them early on, that was great. Great storytelling, again, cautionary tale, how different paths you can take in life and, reforming yourself, that type of thing. But then you see, again, Bobby Cox become totally unhinged. It's interesting. And then Hazer's another character you briefly mentioned. That was Lazaro's best friend who allows Blest to stay at his place in New York. And I thought it was cool. The one aspect that, he had all the writing on the wall in like a kind of graffiti type style. And Alex is like, what's that? Like, that's my life story. So he has his whole life story like in words on the wall. I thought was kind of cool that he did that, and Hazer allowed him to do that.
Yeah. Hazer was another one that he actually made it out as well. It looks like he's living somewhere in Manhattan, and he says he's working on a television show on Telemundo, I believe he said. So he's got a decent steady gig, but he allows, those guys from the neighborhood to come hang out with him every now and then. He has these parties where everybody just kind of hangs out. But he's more or less looking out for Bless out of respect for being his brother's best friend. And he was actually the one that talked about it later, that the night that Lazaro died, he told Hazer to take Bless home, and Bless took him home, and that's when he ended up dying. But he kind of looked out for him the rest of his life after that. Like, he took him in under his wing as a younger brother. But I do like the dialogue between the two of them towards the end of the movie, because we do find out that Bless does get accepted into the college, and Hazer's like, "Yo, man, you need to go. You need to go and get out of here. Go to California. That's the best place for you to be." And he's kind of talking him down. He's like, Lazaro didn't want to, make it back after he was tagged. Maybe that was he saw that as his way out, because he couldn't control what was going on around him. But you have the ability to control what's going on with you. Like, you have an outlet. You have a college that you can go to. So I thought that was I don't want to give too many details because it'll kind of hint at what happens in the end of the movie. But yeah, I do appreciate that conversation. Him trying to, hey, listen, you're like your brother, but you don't have to be exactly like your brother. You have a choice, and you can make it. Yeah,
that was good mentorship by Hazer. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I like that aspect of it also. So yeah, it has elements. Again, it's gritty. It's not your traditional, storyline plot. Not a ton of true character development. It kind of happens in fits and starts. But there's a lot of content here. A lot of goodness. Pick up on social commentary, rebellion. There's these themes that you can pick out, as we did.
Yeah, especially like that whole conversation when Bless and Alex. Well, Bless decides to finally go out with Alex, and she's like, "Come on!" And they're talking about what her and her crew does, and he's like, "Well, that's not really art." And he's like, "Well, she's like, yeah, but we do pretty much the same thing you do. We're just doing it in a different way. Like, we're still rebelling against the system and establishment, and we're making statements about what we think is right and what we think is wrong. We're just doing it in a different way." Come to find out that she wanted to, him to join the crew, and as they wanted to go across country, but yeah, it was that aspect was interesting, because I don't know if I recall ever seeing. Well, no, I have seen stickers posted around different neighborhoods, not as large as the ones they had in the movie, but I've definitely seen political statement stickers all in different neighborhoods, downtown Newark, especially in New York as well. So I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really consider it art, but I do appreciate the statements that they were making.
Can we talk for a minute about Baba Kumar? I thought that was kind of
oh my gosh,
that was bizarre. It's like an underground Hindu temple, or I don't even know what to call it. But they said, "Oh, we're going to like a boat that's underground, but it's like a Hindu temple, and there's a class happening." It was kind of bizarre that was thrown in there. I'm like, okay, what is this?
Very out of left field.
Yeah, it was out of left field. It's almost like a bet. Like, I dare you to throw in a Hindu temple in here with a guru, named Baba Kumar.
Almost like product placement. Like, is this a real thing that like they paid to advertise in this film?
Right, gotta go find a real Baba Kumar.
I need the Baba Kumar.
He exists.
I'm like, okay,
like Seinfeld. Like, here's the underground Hindu temple.
Yeah, that was very, very, very random.
That was random, and they did, and then they went back there at some point later, and I'm like, okay, it's interesting, because it was kind of off left field, like you said. Kind of.
In the end, when Bless was trying to find Kevin, they were like, "Oh, we don't know where he's like, I don't know where he is." And then Hazer's like, "Yeah, he's been hanging out down there. You got to go down there and get him." And he was down there just kind of zoning out, off the deep end. Yeah, that was very random. I don't know. I saw that was the one part of the movie where I was just like, "What?" Like, everything else, I was like, "Okay, I could get it. I get it." And that part, I was like, really? Those exist?
I'm struggling to remember like why they had to go there, or what that was doing. So if I'm not remembering why, it probably wasn't necessary to keep in the film, and so that's a strike against it.
Like the term I used, totally non sequitur, just didn't follow.
Yeah, in the beginning, they went down there because Noble was trying to. he tried to score some marijuana. Yeah, so yeah, so they went down there for that, and Bless was like trying to kind of confuse what they were going, and Noble's like, yeah, don't just sit there, don't say anything. It's like, yeah, don't say anything. All right.
Good
and then
memory,
he was over there trying to talk to Baba, and Baba was like, yeah, I don't know, I told you don't come back here. And Noble's all like, oh, bowing down to him and like almost kissing his feet. I was like, what is going on here?
I could be getting it wrong. It could be Kumar Baba. I'm not sure, but I think he's listed as Kumar Baba, but Baba Kumar, whatever. Yeah, that was just bizarre. Woo. Okay. But solid film. This is one that's kind of underground. Just like, sounds like, I don't think a lot of people know about this film. I don't think it ever hit the theaters. If it did, it was probably in and out. It doesn't really have a lot of star power. Not a lot of actors or actresses that you would really recognize.
Well, the people who watch The Sopranos remember who the actor who plays Bobby Cox is Al Sapienza.
Okay.
Plays Mikey from Sopranos. So.
There we go.
Yes.
So
I was trying to remember where I knew him from. I'm like, why do I know this guy's face? That's okay. You clicked.
Yeah.
Thanks to that connection. Because I was looking at him like, he looks familiar, but I don't recall from where.
There's not a whole lot of like household names in this.
Right. I did appreciate the Lee Quinones cameo though.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, I did appreciate that because that's Lee Quinones, an actual legend in the game. Like, I knew his name since like I was in the first grade when I got my first book with graffiti pictures in it, and his stuff was all over the place. And because my birth name Levi, shortened, some people actually did call me Lee. I gravitated to his tags and his burners whenever I saw them. So yeah, like my eyes lit up. I'm like, oh my god! And as you know, listeners, Lee Quinones is in Wild Style. He's the main character in Wild Style. So yeah, it was good that they actually got him to co-sign and make a brief cameo in the film.
Definitely, you do something about graffiti. Lee Quinones is the guy that you want to have represent.
That's right.
Credibility to the film.
And we got to meet the director of Wild Style, Charlie Ahern, along with the Cold Crush brothers, about a year and a half ago or so. That was awesome. Awesome. This journey that we're on with the Hip Hop Movie Club took us to see those guys live and watch a screening of the film on a memorable evening. Grandmaster Kaz did a solo performance afterwards that we got to see up close. Yeah, that's a memorable night. You can go back and listen to us talk about that. And shout out to DJ R18, our boy Andrew McIntosh, for setting that up.
As always.
Yes.
Much love.
Yeah, it's cool how, we review films and they always seem to tie into something that we've already reviewed at this stage. It's like an intricate, spiderweb of connectivity between what we're talking about now and what we talked about, a year ago, a year and a half ago. Yeah. It's cool to see Lee pop up in there and tying into stuff that we've already talked about.
Boogie, for Bomb the System, will you bring that funky flick back? Or leave it in the vault?
I'm on the fence with this one. I think I actually might bring the funky flick back. And I've said this before. Maybe watch it maybe one more time, and then I might vault it. Because I feel like I might have missed some things in the film, so I think I might want to go back and analyze it again. I did get a pretty good grasp of what it's about and everything, but I think sometimes when I watch films, I like to go back. If it interests me, I like to go back and watch it at least one more time. So this did interest me, so I think I do owe it to go back and watch it at least one more time. But I think after that, I don't think I'll need to watch it anymore because I think, I'll have a full mental grasp of everything. So at that point, I'll vault it.
Yeah. All right. Done all right. For Bomb the System, bring that funky flick back or leave it in the vault.
I was also on the fence on this, but I will say bring this funky flick back. But I will also say that I don't think this is a must-watch for hip-hop culture enthusiasts. I mean, if you're a hardcore fan, you'd probably watch this, but you definitely should watch Beat Street, by the way, which we're screening soon.
That's right.
Or Wild Style, or Style Wars, or probably some other graffiti films that we haven't discussed, but things like Exit the Gift Shop or Infamy. There's a lot of other graffiti films out there. And even though this film does make a lot of people's top 10 lists, yeah, this isn't a must-watch for me.
Yeah.
I'm for myself. I'm of the same opinion. It wasn't my favorite, but I'm gonna say bring this funky flick back. There are some themes that we discussed that are important themes. It wasn't my favorite presentation of it, but it's got some intrinsic value that is worthwhile. Like you said, Dynamite, many better films that are more well constructed that stand the test of time. But keep this out in circulation. Graffiti artists should check it out.
Yeah. I think if you're a graph artist, you probably want to check it out. But I mean, if you're like a DJ or an MC, up and coming B-boy or something like that, I wouldn't say it's necessary. But yeah, if you're an artist, maybe check it out. Get a little authenticity and see things from a New York City perspective. But there definitely are much more polished, more bigger budget, more well produced movies out.
They were able to get Radiohead to put a song on the soundtrack, so I was like, "Whoa, that's a Radiohead song in this economy!" Oh my goodness!
Sounds like you guys are familiar with the app Letterboxd. My son Iceberg has got me into that. I've reviewed this on that. I don't give a full review, but just a star rating and maybe just a couple lines. But I gave it like either 2.5 or 3 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, it's B-, B, something like that.
Yeah, something like
maybe
that.
B+ in its best parts.
Yep, sure.
Hip Hop Movie Club is produced by your HHMCs, JB, Boogie, and Dino Wright. Theme music by Boogie. As always, check out our full live event schedule on our website, hiphopmovieclub.com. Thanks for watching the Hip Hop Movie Club show. Ring the bell so you get notified when we post new content. It's the sound of a power-up for us, so thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more where that came from. So hit the thumbnail, it's about to come on the screen.
And remember, don't hate, appreciate.
Hand out them flowers, please.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you
guys.
Can't talk. Thank you. Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys and this journey we're on. It's fun.
Yeah, man.
Amen.